that what with I know with comedy and horror, combining them is usually kind of challenging. For well, let me not let me not quote any bad films, but for every
We
a
can't.
Cabin in the Woods and Werewolf Within, we have some not so good ones, and so that's kind of
Mhm.
tricky. If you lean too much into horror, it's kind of if you lean too much into comedy, it doesn't really work. What were some of the things that or obstacles that you face when directing, like for instance, your first film, Scare Me, being that it was
Mhm.
comedic as well as horror?
Yeah, I mean, it's all casting. It's all about the
Hmm.
casting. Like Sam Richardson
Hmm.
informs Werewolves Within in tone in a way that Jonathan Majors or William Jackson Harper would have informed it in a different way.
Okay.
Your casting informs your tone, whether you intend it to or not. In the case of Werewolves, we were like, who are the best people we know who are down to like go for this wild ride? We
Hmm.
were so lucky to have the all of the cast that we did. But balancing the tone has everything to do with getting a cast that doesn't get caught trying to be funny and that can
Mhm.
play fear for real, which is something that
Hmm.
Sam can do, and Harvey Guillen and Milana, um, Aya Cash. They are inherently funny, but they're also really good actors. So if you introduce
Right.
the threat, they could play the threat. They could play threatened just as well as all the other good stuff.
Awesome.
So, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I think that's a lot. People ask me, it's like, how do you balance it? It's like, treat the scary stuff, treat it scary, and when it comes to the funny stuff, just don't lean on it too hard. Like
Hmm.
cast people that are just inherently funny, have comedy in their bones, which is a little bit about how I've gotten as far as I have, and why I think us comedic minded filmmakers, like I'm not going to dare put myself in the same position as like John Krasinski or
Hmm.
Jordan Peele or Zach Kreger, but they all came from comedy. There's a
Mhm.
Right.
reason for it. We also need more women filmmakers that, whether they came from comedy or not, should be referenced. Like Karin
Mhm.
Kusama doesn't have a comedic background. She's one of my favorite genre directors. But Jennifer's Body, if you watch Jennifer's Body, she doesn't lean too much into the humor, but it's sickly humorous
Right.
and super dark, and she balances it really well. So had to include Karin in there because she rules. But yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Mixing comedy, I always think one of the reasons why I think horror movies that are good that have comedic backgrounds or comedic actors or comedic writers is because the
Mm-hmm.
amount of intelligence it takes to pull off comedy kind of translates. And that's how I have always looked at
Yeah.
it. I feel like people who are very funny have an intelligence level that kind of exceeds regularness. And if that translates into being able to write for horror, I think that's where the horror ends up being a better movie instead of kind of like the
Yeah.
typical horror where you're like, yeah, that would never happen.
Yeah, that's well said. I think there's this thing about the comedic minded, I don't know, filmmaker or just person. We're observational. We we
Hmm.
we clock quirks and weird behaviors and obnoxious behaviors.
Hmm.
You look at a movie like a Barbarian, for example, and you have I think it's Georgia King played the lead opposite Justin Long. But you have you know Georgia King's character acting freaked out about this basement situation, and it's terrifying. And there's very slight humor to it, slight humorous tenor to it. And then you have Justin Long come in as this kind of douchebag
Right.
who sees the scary basement as a monetary opportunity for him to get more money for his real estate, and it's a true observation.
Hmm.
And you kind of can imagine that some dude like that would just see it as a financial opportunity. Just that slight comedic observation based in truth makes it all
Hmm.
the more kind of scary, because you're watching both of these characters walk into this dangerous place and you're like, oh God, I hope nothing happens. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
agreed. Since we were just talking about Werewolves Within, um, how did that idea come about? Did you play the video game? Did you play the Ubisoft game?
I didn't. I hadn't heard of the video game really until I got the opportunity to direct the
Mhm.
movie. I read the script. It was sent to me via Vanishing Angle. They were our producing partners. They had actually just done another werewolf movie called The Wolf of Snow Hollow, which is great.
Yeah.
And it was part of Ubisoft's women's fellowship program for film and television. So Mishna Wolf, our writer, last name Wolf, by the way,
Nice.
She just wrote the script. Yeah, it's just like on brand, right? She just took the IP and was tasked to just write essentially whatever she wanted. Find a story you like that could be based on this game, even if loosely. And she did. She found this very The Thing type vibe to it, and that's what I responded to. That's what we all did. It was like, wow, it's truly like a fun whodunit, you know, reminded me a little bit of Clue and a little bit of like Arachnophobia and a little bit of The Thing and that, you know, that kind of world. So yeah, I just fell for it immediately. So that's how it came to me. And I did some revisions on it, but it was Mishna's brilliant script that made it possible.